Hi Michelle, thanks for meeting with me today. On the phone, you said you wanted to reduce your risk in portfolio by allocating more dollars to bonds. Is that correct? I want to know, I want you to know that you can do this by either buying individual bonds or a bond fund. There can be pros and cons in both in a rising interest rate environment. I'm going to talk to you today about both bonds and bond funds and then fill you in on the pros and cons of each. Depending on the needs of your investment portfolio and the time you have to dedicate it to it, it could either be either one could be the best for your choice. Both have a range of maturity dates bonds have a range of maturity dates ranging from 1 month to 30 years. This all depends on how long you have and want to hold it to maturity. Every bond reacts differently to interest rates. The longer the maturity, the more strongly they act to interest rates. This makes them more volatile than their shorter duration bonds. Depending on how much money you want to allocate to bonds will determine what you can buy. Oftentimes, corporate bonds are about $10,000 while treasury bonds are about $1,000. In addition, bond values are inversely correlated with yields and stock prices. So for example, when stock prices go down, bond values usually rise. In contrast, there are also bond funds. Bond funds are the most common types of bonds and stuff used by investors to gain exposure to bond assets. Bond funds are nice because there's a bond portfolio that gives different maturity dates in order to ensure investors have consistent income payments. For example, when one bond matures, your fund manager will replace it with a different bond to keep just the bond ladder running smoothly, and so there's always bonds in your portfolio. This ensures that you are continually going and investing what you have asked for. Bond funds also pay out monthly dividends. This is nice because you can either reinvest them or they can be cashed out. Investing in individual bonds does not allow this option. Bond funds also don't have maturity dates in which investors can reach or have face values in bonds, which makes them more liquid than individual bonds. When investors choose bond funds because of the relative ease of investing. Unlike individual bonds, bond funds are designed for the everyday investor and they don't require a lot of knowledge in their topic, and their fund manager does all the work. But before making your decision on what you think would be best for your portfolio, I want you to know that both bonds and bond funds can play a large role in any diversified portfolio. They help lower the risk involved with the equities and provide a steady stream of income when you're ready to retire. Both bonds and bond funds have their own pros and cons and need to be considered first. Bond funds do require less knowledge than individual bonds. However, they do come with an expense ratio, which is usually about 0.93%. Usually these don't get into the double-digit returns, so when considering bond funds, remember the expense ratio, and this could bring down your overall portfolio return. And even though investing in individual bonds does not come with an expense ratio, they do come with a greater risk associated with the changes in the interest rates. Like I said before, if interest rates were to increase, then bond value is probably going to decrease. Along with the considering portfolio returns, liquidity is also an important consideration. Bond funds are far more liquid than individual funds since there is no maturity date. Individual bonds can be much harder to sell before maturity date, and then if the interest rate has increased, then your bond value could have decreased significantly. So Michelle, I hope this has given you more knowledge and helped with your questions about bonds and bond funds when you're considering adding to your portfolio. I do think it's a good option to reduce your risk in your portfolio by allocating more dollars to the bonds.